Kala Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Brakdao Brakdao Shai Brakdao Brakdao Shai Brakdao Brakdao Shai the Wada Baba Baba called Kadash. I'd like to give the honors to the elders apostles, great millstone that teaches truth, which is the 100% truth, the true word of our Lord. Inspired me to do a lesson this morning. I've been doing a little research and going back and forth against ChatGPT this morning. And it all started from a video I saw on TikTok this morning. And there's a brother that's going down the rabbit hole on the nobles of Europe, the so-called Europe, which we know is supposed to be Western Asia. And the brother, the elder apostle, what's the name, out of GMS Chicago, Malcolm, often goes a deep dive into this topic on black nobility, the swarthy, the hidden, people of our time. And so let me just pull this video up, and I will land back off of this video. And like I say, it's fair use only for educational purposes only.
Admit this, but I went down a rabbit hole about Scotland and Ireland, and it was crazy. The Stuart family. The Stuart family is the ones that founded Scotland, right? So in those times when people gave themselves surnames or last names, they was using a last name or something that described themselves or described what they do or whatever. Stuart meant black or meant dark. That's what Stuart meant, right? So when I did research, studying or whatever, the Stuarts, I'm coming into conflicting information. Some of their paintings they had were white, and some of their paintings they had were black. So I'm like, hold on, what the fuck going on? Henry Lord Darnley, for one. At the time, I was studying the origins of religions in Europe, and I had to study King James. So come to find out, King James is Stuart. So I'm like, oh shit, don't tell me motherfucking King James black. So I started digging up more, right? I'm going into, I'm in the UK government archive files looking at shit, right? And at the time, they didn't use the word black. It was other terms, Moor, Maroon, Maury, Ameri, Tamari, Swarthy. They was using those terms. So when they was describing King James in archive literature, they always said he was swarthy. And swarthy means dark, black. So now I'm like all in it. I'm like, okay, let me look up King James' parents. See, King James, he changed his name when he became king. They changed their name to King. That's why his name was King James, the first of his kind. But his real name was Acob Stewart. Acob with an I. I-A-C-O-B. That was his name. Acob Stewart. But back then, they pronounced I's like J. So it sounded like Jacob or whatever. Now, I looked up his parents. And Henry Lord Darnley, that was his father. Henry Lord Darnley, that was his father. I'm looking him up. They saying he's swarthy with curly hair, and all the ladies loved him, and he had majestic eyes, and I'm looking up pictures of him. Black as fuck. Black as fuck. So now I'm like looking up his motherfucking kids. So King James had a son named Charles, right? Guess what his nickname was? The Black Boy. That was his nickname, the Black Boy. So I'm a little excited right now, so forgive me. But you definitely tell the truth, because when the Renaissance era came in, it came in right when King James was murdered, right? And when the Renaissance era was nothing but a whitewashing era. They was erasing the previous art, they was erasing the previous literature, burning books. They was putting their names on certain paintings. This is why Michelangelo, Donatello, Leonardo, all of those artists became famous. Shakespeare, all of those artists became famous or whatever, because this was the Renaissance era when they was whitewashing everything. I'm glad you said something. I've never had anybody of Scottish descent admit this, but I went down a rabbit hole about Scotland and Ireland, and it was crazy. The Stuart family.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And like I said, they do so much to try to whitewash the history of our people. But so like I said, I just went from there. So I like to challenge ChatGPT, because we know that they have such certain programs in the ChatGPT to try to hide a lot of the truth. And a lot of times you have to pretty much back it into a corner in order to get the truth out of ChatGPT. So I went into Henry Lord Darney, and now naturally they're gonna pull up the white images. You can see, as you can see here, the so-called white, as we call them. But we know them through biblical understanding of those to be the Edomites. And like I said, Lord Darney was the father of King James. King James is the one that put together the Bible for us that we have here today. So I put in, was he swarthy? There is no reliable historical evidence that Henry Stuart, Lord Darney, was swarthy in the sense of having dark brown or black skin. So they understand swarthy means dark brown or black, but a lot of times they don't know what's during that time. They would often reference them as being swarthy. Contemporary descriptions and portraits generally depict them as fair-skinned, light-haired, or blonde, tall, over 6 feet, handsome, standard at the time. One Oakley portrait shows him as a blonde boy with white skin. Later accounts describe him as exceptionally handsome. Well, of course, see, they're trying to go through the whole scenario of painting him in this one light. So we're gonna dig in a little further. So I put in King James swarthy when I fed it to ChatGPT. This what came back. If you mean King James, a scholar in England, let me see. Okay, I had to clarify with ChatGPT. We kind of jumping around a little bit, just bear with me. So I gave him this image that I pulled up of Lord Darney. That I pulled up, and you can see right there, it's clearly a dark skin with curly hair, as the brother had on this thing. Let me blow it up a little bit. That's not a tall, blonde-haired white boy that they were trying to describe. So the image you shared is making a claim based on 2 historical depictions of Lord Darney and Mary, Queen of Scots. However, it is important to be careful about drawing conclusions. That's where they try to send you off on that left turn. If someone is arguing these images prove that King James had African ancestry or that his parents were black, the image by itself would not be considered strong historical evidence. Historians typically rely on multiple sources: contemporary portraits, written descriptions, family records, diplomatic reports, and other primary documents. And here I'll pull up some more images of that time. And you see up in the top, I guess top right corner, would be King James. So when I put that and put it in ChatGPT, the images, common arguments used online to suggest that some Scottish noble families, including the Stuarts, had African ancestry. The evidence shows consists mainly of hieratic crest featuring heraldry calls a Moor's head. Heraldry calls a Moor head. A stylized depictions of black African person. A few important points. The crest shown for families such as Lindsay, Gordon, Livingston, and other real heraldic symbols that appear in heraldic armorial collections. In European heraldry, the Moor head was often used as a symbol and did not necessarily indicate that the family itself was black or African descent. So why would they go through all those changes of putting a black head on their crest at that time? And it's just, they're trying to redirect you, man. The Hermetic symbols could commemorate military campaigns, crusade against saints, victories, legends, alliances, and traditions rather than literal ancestry. The presence of Moors' heads on crests is not considered proof of historians that the noble family was ethnically African. The image also places King James and one alongside these crests suggests a direct racial connection. However, establishing ancestry requires genealogical records, which we know they're going to go on to the DNA stuff, that said they were Africans and people of mixed African ancestry of Britain and Europe centuries before the modern era. Some noble lineages have been debated by historians, and the strongest claims require documented evidence tracing the specific ancestral, not simply the appearance of crests, because we know they can always go back and change documents and hide and destroy documents, which a lot of them did, during that time. One thing about artifacts and crests and things of that nature, those things that still exist to today, that's what we use to as historical markers. But they're gonna try to lessen or make that less standable fact. So I put in, why would they use dark images for a crest? Okay, well, we just went down that. Family legends, identity, okay. Did the Renaissance era have whitewashing? That's a question I asked. The answer depends on what you mean by whitewashing. You know what I mean? If you mean changing the appearance of historical biblical features to look more European than they may have originally looked, then many historians agree that during the Renaissance, roughly 13 to 1600, artists often painted biblical, Greek, Roman, and Middle Eastern figures using the physical features familiar to their own society. Then they give you the picture of the Last Supper and supposed to be supposedly Jesus Christ, which we know is Yahweh Shai. However, if by whitewashing you mean deliberate, organized effort to erase all European people from history, that is much stronger claim, and historians generally require specific evidence for each case. There are documented examples where ancient statues were restored according to later European tastes. Biblical and historical figures were depicted with European features. Earlier artwork and historic interpretations were influenced by cultural assumptions at that time. A balanced historical view is Renaissance artists often Europeanized biblical and ancient figures. Some historical depictions reflected the biases of cultural perspective in that area. Of course they did. Would it benefit the new rulers to whitewash images to promote agendas? Yes, throughout history, rulers and governments often use art, monuments, education, religion, and media to promote legitimacy and reinforce their authority. When new dynasty empires and political comes to power, it commonly reshapes historical narratives in ways to support its rule. Like say, whoever conquers, they writes the history. That's one thing they always often did. When one ruling civilization overcame another, they would do with all the historical artifacts and rewrite the history. Say Roman emperors altered statues, inscriptions, and previous rulers. Egyptians, pharaohs erasing viral names from monuments. So it's just common practice what they do. We know these Edomites, man, that's what they're definitely known for doing, because they're trying to rewrite their place in history. and in the future. That they're trying to rewrite themselves to replace you Jakes, man. You so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. In short, yes, rulers often modified images, symbols, and historical narratives to advance political, religious, and cultural agendas. The challenge is determined case by case. Okay. All right. So here I pull up an image of Lord Darnay again, fed it into ChatGPT. And you clearly see that he has curly hair and a darker toned skin. Okay, and this what ChatGPT kick back. The engraving is Henry Stuart Lord Darnay is one of the images often discussed in debates about historical appearance. Looking only at the image, he is shown with tightly curled hair. Engraving uses white and black and white shading, so it does not reliably indicate skin color. His facial features can be interpreted differently by different viewers. The engraving itself is not a color portrait, but cannot tell us whether his complexion was light, olive, or dark. Come on now. You know they're gonna definitely, if he would have been white, he'd have been painted all out white. And like I said before, they trying to say he had blonde hair. What's interesting is that some of the people look at the engraving and see features of considered African, while others see features of common Renaissance European. So I asked it, what was King James' nickname? Or King Charles, which King Charles II. His nickname is often was referenced to as the Black Boy. Some inns and taverns use the sign as reference to Charles II after he hid his parliamentary forces following the battle at Worcester in 1651. The origin of the meaning of the nickname is debated by historians, and it does not necessarily indicate his ethnicity. What do you think the Black Boy mean? Come on, common sense, you know. Charles II is often depicted with dark curly hair, a darker complexion than some earlier English monarchs and certain portraits, a prominent nose and long face. See, Charles II is a member of the House of Stuart, descended from European royal families. While there are debates online about some of the portraits and nicknames, historians generally do not regard them as evidence of Charles II was black. Evidence that sometimes deserves investigation, evidence that conclusively proves a particular theory. Many major historical discoveries started because people noticed patterns often ignored. So I put in there's no such thing as coincidence. So, like I say, Proverbs chapter 16, verse 33. A lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. Romans 8, chapter 28. This is what ChatGPT gave it back. And we know all things work together for the good of them that are the love of God. That's what ChatGPT kicked back. So I put in hence the term Dark Ages. If you're referring to the term Dark Ages, some people argue that the name itself suggests a period of hidden supposed history. However, historians generally use the term differently. Some alternative history researchers argue that the term Dark Ages reflects more than a lack of records and may relate to a loss of obscured history. This is a separate theory. The mainstream historical views that the name refers to scarcity of surviving sources rather than deliberate attempt to hide identity of people. The last days the veils will be the veil will be lifted, truth to light, and hidden revealed. Luke chapter 8, verse 17. For nothing in secret shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 14. For Yahweh shall bring every work into judgment, and every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 5. Therefore judge nothing before the time until the Lord come, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness. And 2 Ezra chapter 6, verse 28. As for faith, it shall flourish, corrupt shall be overcome, and the truth which hath so long without fruit shall be declared. So we in the time, man, the Lord is revealing all these dark, these secret things that have been hidden to try to hide, first of all, who they are, because we know them, according to the Bible, as being the Edomites, the ruling class. And the Lord's chosen people, you Israelites, you so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. For Luke 8, chapter 17, for nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. So history has been manipulated at times. Victors have rewritten history, destroyed records, altered images, and promoted narratives that served their interests. Some historical figures have been portrayed differently across time and cultures. This is especially true with the biblical figures and rulers. And we know that also by how they try to change the name of landmasses like Western Europe. Western Europe, Western Asia, which they like to use the term now as being Europe. There's no such thing during the time of being Europe. And so then I started going into how they try to hide it in the Bible. Revelation chapter 1, verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, white as snow, and eyes were as flame of fire. And his feet like the fine brass as they burned in a furnace, and his voice a sound of many waters. He is one of the most detailed symbolic descriptions, symbolic descriptions of glorified Yahweh Shai. It's not just only symbolic, but it's a revelation. It's revealing. His head and hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. Describes the color of his hair, white symbolizing wisdom, purity, eternity, global comparison. Comparison of wool refers to texture, while white as snow refers to color. So it's just trying to say it's referring to texture. So the eyes were a flame of fire. His feet were into fine brass as was burnt in the furnace. This text compares his feet to glowing refined brass has been heated in the furnace. This image emphasizes brightness, refinement, strength, and fiery glory. The different readers have interpreted the appearance directly, but the passage explicitly uses the imagery of furnace burned brass, and his voice is sound of many waters. So if you got brass and you burn it in the fire, it's going to be darker. So when you talk about the feet, if the feet is one color, 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, the body's going to be the same as the feet, or pretty much close to. So I went into the color of his feet. Revelation chapter 1, verse 15. His feet were like fine brass as if burned in a furnace. This text itself does not give modern skin tone label. Instead, it uses comparison: fine brass, refined bronze, brass, metal, burned in the furnace, heated until it glows and fully refined. People interpret the passage in different ways. Some emphasize the symbolic meaning of strength, purity, judgment, and glory. Others note the brass and bronze heated in the furnace is darker and therefore see the passage describing a darker appearance. The book of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 5 and 6. Daniel sees a heavenly figure and describes him his way. Daniel 10, 5, verses 5 and 6. Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins girded with the gold of Uphaz. His body is also like beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as the lamps of fire, and his arms and feet like the color of polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of multitude. So his arms and feet like unto the color of polished brass. Daniel 7 and 9. And behold, the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and his hair and his head like the pure wool. Wool like hair texture, feet, arms polished or furnished brass, eyes of fire. Hairs of pure wool, white as snow, eyes like fire. So I told her to put in the picture of polished brass, and that's what it kicked back. Nothing like an Edomite's feet. Nothing like that Caesar Borgia character that they like to feed you. Now, who does that foot look more like? Look like our feet. So-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You know, we are different tones of brown. We're not black. Black is a negative image or that they like to portray or put us in that category of being black. We're not black. We're different shades of brown, man. You know, black is like what my pants are. That's black. We're not that color, man. When people discuss hair like wool in Revelation chapter 14, too, they usually focus on the texture like wool, white as snow. And so you do a texture of wool, white as snow, like a gray-haired black man, very similar to that of the lamb, like wool. The book of Job, chapter 30, verse 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. So it's giving you a description of what his skin is black upon him. The verse you cited, my skin is black upon me, is indeed a direct statement in the text that questions interpreters ask whether Job is describing his natural appearance, a condition caused by suffering, a disease, or both. That where the discussion usually centers. Then I went into how Moses had put his hand in his breast and it came out white. And that's Exodus chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. And the Lord Yahweh said furthermore unto him, Put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom. When he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thy hand into thy bosom again, and put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out his bosom. And behold, it was turned again. Behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. So if his flesh was white and he put his hand in his bosom and pulled it back out and it was white as snow, then there wouldn't be no significant difference. It wouldn't anything be worth noting. But if his skin was brown like ours, black, and he put it in his bosom and pulled it out and it came in white as snow, then that would be something of a mystery. That would be something remarkable, something worth noting. Some people argue that the passage suggests that Moses' normal skin was darker before the sign of leprosy, turning his hand white as snow, and would have been especially striking. Others focused on the disease imagery of itself and see emphasis as a miraculous change rather than Moses' baseline complexion. See, that's another coincidence. Moses' hand becoming white as snow in Exodus 4 and 6. Miriam becoming white as snow when struck with leprosy, Numbers chapter 12, verse 10. Let's go there. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Because Miriam, the Lord turned her leprous. I think it was for 3 days. It might have been 3 days. And then she returned back to her normal color. And also I put in here, Mary and Joseph went into Egypt to hide amongst the Egyptians. The Egyptians at that time were darker skinned, melanated people. How could white skinned people go hide amongst the Egyptians? That question comes up often in discussion about appearance of people in the ancient Near East. And the biblical account says that Joseph took Mary and the young Yahushua into Egypt to escape Herod's decree. Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 through 15. The text itself does not say that they hid by changing their appearance or that they were visually indistinguishable from every Egyptian. It simply says they lived there until Herod's death. But if you got some white Edomites that go there amongst the Egyptians, it's going to be easy to distinguish them. Historically, ancient Egypt was diverse civilization that existed thousands of years and interacted with people of the Nubia, South Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Libya. Ancient artwork shows range of skin tones among the Egyptians. And we know that they changed the skin tones, especially after the post-Alexandria, when he conquered Egypt, post-Alexandria period. That's when they came into Egypt and they started to merge in with the Egyptians, and they started to repaint a lot of the images as being lighter skin or either white skin. Pre-Alexandria Egypt, her dark skin. And here they give you different images. Shit. Different images of the dark-skinned Egyptians, which ancient Egyptians were indigenous to the Nile Valley of Africa. Egyptian artwork often portrays Egyptians with reddish brown, dark brown skin tones, while neighboring people were depicted different colors and styles. What is not debated is that Egypt was an African civilization long before Alexander the Great arrived. Modern racial categories such as black, white, and Middle Eastern do not map neatly into the ancient world, which is one reason these discussions become complicated. When people point to the biblical events such as Joseph's family living in Egypt, Moses being raised by Pharaoh's house, Jeremiah fleeing into Egypt, or Yahushua's family taking refuge there, they are often emphasized the close historical and geographical connection between ancient Israel and the Egyptians. Those connections are well established in both biblical and historical sources. The Egyptians were descendants of Ham, which were dark skinned. The Bible does not teach that Mizraim, Egypt, was a son of Ham. And the sons of Ham's Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. And it's like I'm just looking at a few things that I had, notes I had in here. The Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. I am black, but calmly, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, in the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. This is the clearest version of the Bible where the person explicitly describes themselves as black and calmly, beautiful, attractive. The next verse says, Song of Solomon, look upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. There are different interpretations of these verses. Some readers understand the speaker to be describing dark complexion associated with sun exposure. Others see it as evidence the speaker was naturally dark-skinned and became even darker from working in the sun. The Hebrew word translated black, I can't even pronounce that, is generally understood to mean dark or black. What is not disputed is the fact literally says, I am black but calmly. The debate is over exactly what contributed to that appearance and how the verse relates to the broader ethnic and historical context of ancient Israel. So that's pretty much it, though. What we see throughout history, how they've often hid and tried to hide the ethnicity, the 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 different tribes of people throughout history, man. That's part of Esau Edom, man. He even changes the land masses and names so that he can try to hide himself throughout history, man, who he is. We know him as the Edomites. And you go into the book of Obadiah. The vision of Obadiah, thus said the Lord God concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord Yahweh, an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. And this is why he hides himself. If you read Obadiah, it explains perfectly why he tried to hide himself in today's time. Thy pride in thy heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? So he's in contention with everybody, even Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh. Like he's gonna bring him down. That's his pride, that's his arrogance. Coming out. Verse 4: Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. And he always used as his images, the eagle. Throughout history, it's always been his reference of idols. Throughout history, it's been the eagle. During the Roman time, and here in America, Babylon the Great, they often reference the eagle. Even over there in Great Britain, that's been their symbol that they often use. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, who's been all up in the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. He's not just talking about to literally bring them down, but physically bring them down, but literally bring them down, Because right now he's ruling over all the nations. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? How are things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things stored up? Because he hides everything, man. That's part of his deception. He engrossed the whole world in nothing but lies and darkness. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and rebelled against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound upon thee, under thee. There is no understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh, even destroy the wise men out of Edom and understanding out of Mount Esau? So they've taken all the wisdom and all the wisdom out of Esau, Edom in these last days. And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, and the end of every one of them, the Mount of Esau, be cut off by slaughter. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off. Goes back to Esau, Esau and Jacob, man. From the time in the womb, he's always been our adversary, going against us. Jacob is you so-called Black, Hispanic, Native Americans. We're going to drop down to verse 14. Neither should thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those that did escape, neither should thou have delivered up those that did remain in the day of distress. During those captivities, the times we came up under the Babylonians and the Assyrians, Esau, Edom, man, he blocked our way. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen, and thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thy own head. Let's go back to that verse 14. Let me plug that in real quick. I want to be specific on that. This verse portrays the judgment against Esau, Edom for what they did to Jerusalem. When Jerusalem was attacked, the accusation is not merely that Edom watched, according to Obadiah, they rejoiced over Judah's calamity. They entered into the gates of Jerusalem during its destruction and helped capture captives, and helped capture fugitives trying to escape, and turned over survivors to the enemy. We'll drop down to verse 17. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess her possessions. We're going back to verse 15. For the day of the Lord is near upon all heathen, and thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thy own head. So the same thing they done to us is going to return back unto them, man. They're going to have to drink that same cup. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame. They're talking about the northern and southern kingdom. And the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them. And they shall not be any remained of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. So that's telling he's going to eventually going to do away with them after they go through their hardcore slavery. And of the south shall possess the mount of Esau, and the plain of the Philistines, and they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Gilead. And the captains of the hosts of the children of Israel shall possess the Canaanites, the Zarephath, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is the Shepherds shall possess the cities of the south. All Saviors shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be of the Lord's. So Edom has a foretold future that it's not going to be great, and therefore they try to hide themselves and change up history because they know their judgment is coming, man. We at the end of this thing. We at the end of our captivity, man. We're going to come in rulership, and these Edomites are going to be our slaves, man. They're going to go into a hardcore bondage, same as they did to us, because they're going to help build up our kingdom. But that's pretty much it, man. Just want to kind of pretty much end there. Like I say, it's a long, deep dive once you go into, hidden history and the things that Esau Edom does to try to hide who they are and hide who we are. So with that being said, man, all praise. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. With that, say shalom.